no utonge ugituika millionaire hau iguru utuikaga ki yeah watuika millionaire hau iguru ni ndirenda muone umwe na maitho biashara ciake ciina icio ciganona na ni akumutariria ni iriku niguo munyite mundu wina kambuni ya guthondeka transformers mundu wina kambuni kuria Nigeria ya ndege mundu wina kambuni kuria DRC Democratic Republic of Congo no maundu macio ndirenda amwire na ningwenda gukaribisha my good friend. He is also the chairman of the Competition Authority of Kenya. Etagwo Mr. Shaka Kariuki. Na akichengwa na Kikuyu kidogo, alie Githweri muelewe kabisa. Todo maisha mamwe athomeire Nairobi, but he has done very well in business. Karibu sana. Makofi kwake tafadhali. Muriaga andu a Kiharo. Mungu asifiwe. Mheshimiwa, thank you very much for that kind introduction. It is indeed an honor and privilege for me to be here and to share a few brief remarks. You know, it is not that long ago that actually I was seated similar to those students right there. You know, miaka ni hanyukaga, to be really honest, but it is actually not that long ago. And let me briefly tell you about my background. O kidogo. Githomo nie andu aingi aria maragia ma invite guka kwaria makoragwo mekire mathomire wega cukuru moka number 1 and so forth, but me I was the extreme opposite. Me, I struggled in school. As a matter of fact, even in primary school I barely graduated. Na riria ndarikirie primary school ona cukuru ya high school ya my village haria ndubu-ini matianjoire. Ndathire all over gucaria cukuru. Ndaririkana even with my mom. There was a speaker here who talked about Kevote in Embu. I even went to Kevote High School. Tukiareria headmaster ko. He never gave us a chance. Eventually, a school in Nairobi called Jamhuri High School, decided to give me a chance. And that was towards the end of the term, of the first term. So I gave Form 1 how. But even when I was in Form 1, I continued to struggle. I was still at the bottom of the class. Form 2, the same thing. Until finally in Form 3, the first term of Form 3, something happened. I call it a light bulb movement. That's what I moved a switch around the light. And I suddenly realized that this education is not that complicated. You can actually be able to put in some effort and be able to perform well. And from that point onwards, I ended up always being on the top tier of my school. So starting from a person who barely got out of primary school, I ended up going to university, getting a degree in economics, getting a master's in business, and getting a master's in government from Harvard University. Now, let me switch gears just a little bit and now tell you from a career standpoint. My first job that I remember where I was actually paid money was in a company. It was a book publishing company, Korea Nairobi. Now my role yari kuvanga mavuku na kuma pack into boxes na kumekira kiria pickup. I was actually in Form 2. And I remember my first day when I got there. I pangared the books, put them in the boxes, put them in the pickup. And then the driver got there and the salesperson, makigira gari. And then me, I went to enter in and they said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I thought we were delivering the books." To which the salesperson said, "Yes, but you ride in the back." I went to the back and I opened the door and I said that it's full of boxes. And then the guy came back and he looked at the boxes and he said, "There's space on top." No hatiere space yago ikarade. It was actually space to lay flat. So he picked me up and pushed me in there. So I laid flat. As we went to the city, Nairobi, to the different books, textbook centers, and delivered those books. And that's what I did during the holidays. And then after that, I got another job at Housing Finance. So actually, to make a long story short, Up to today, I've been working since I was in Form 2. That's, I call, the value of hard work. Now let me fast forward again. From being a loader at a publishing company in Nairobi to what I do today. Today, I'm the co-founder and the co-CEO of Kīmako Capital Management, one of the largest private equity groups in Africa. We have offices in New York City, in Lagos, Nigeria. As a matter of fact, right after this meeting, I am going to the airport. I have a meeting in Lagos, Nigeria this evening. We have obviously offices here in Nairobi. We have employees in South Africa and also some working in, out of London. And we have actually invested, as Mheshimiwa mentioned earlier, in 35 companies across the continent. We have, and some of those companies manage assets north of 5 billion. Kīmako, we've invested more than $500 million. We have helped catalyze more than 3.5 billion into companies in Africa. If you add that up, you're talking about more than 9 billion. Let me ask you a question to the students. How many zeros, and feel free to shout, how many zeros are in a billion? Who knows? How many zeros are in a billion? 9. The parents came through. I was asking the students, no, sawa. Arutwo. Okay, 9 zeros. So when I say 9 billion, actually I do not mean 9 billion shillings. I'm talking about $9 billion. Now I want you to do the simple math in your mind. How many zeros, or 9 billion equals how much in shillings? If you do the whatever exchange rate you're going to use, that is over 1 trillion Kenya shillings. It's okay. Now the question I have is, or you should ask me is, how did somebody who started out as a loader, end up overseeing a portfolio worth more than 1 trillion Kenya shillings across the continent? And some of those businesses we've invested include many companies here in Kenya. And in the process of doing that, we've created thousands and thousands of jobs, impacted hundreds of thousands of lives, and made a difference in people's lives. But let me tell you how it happens. Number one, dream big and have lofty goals. Have goals that actually other people, when they hear about them, they think they're crazy. Goals that even scare you yourself. Because it is achievable once you have those goals. Today I'm not here by coincidence. I'm here because during my first year in campus, I sat down and wrote down what I wanted to do 20 years down the road. And then I took those goals and said, in 10 years, this is what I want to do. And then subdivided those 10-year goals to 5 years, and then to 1-year goals, and then eventually to monthly goals, so that every month, whatever I'm doing, I knew it was going towards the end goal. I'll give you a quick story. There was one time, in high school, we ended up moving from Duboine Duboine is in Lodero, by the way, to in Nairobi, a place called Langata. So every weekend, Saturday, Dogmaga Haumagoro, Kumahaurangata, Gahetokira Kivira, Gahetokira Daguriti Kona, Gahetokira Haria Kawaguare, Rirota, Geona Haria Kabete, Hario Dero, and I've Haria Duboine. Mudanya Mona Saturday, Daddy Haukabatu in Gaudi Hawa Odero. A black Audi pulled next to me. And I remember vividly, because there was a matatu in front of it. I don't even need Dradi Magoro. Dradi Otinedia Shoshodara, Nigada Crodidio, Shiako Hengobe, Wikieo. The lady who was driving that car, we made eye contact. She was a beautiful lady. And she had a small girl seated in the front seat. Alafu hetoka matatueo and zapped off up the hill. And that right there, I made a goal that one day nega shokaha in this exact spot with a black Audi and do the same thing. And as luck would have it, eventually I did get that black Audi. The weekend you get the exact same spot, waited for a matatu, and then passed it and drove up the hill. Because goals, when you're making such a goal, if you share it with somebody, they'll think it's impossible. But it is possible. na iratũ cia black. Ngathiĩ magũrũ nginya harĩa New Stanley Hotel in Nairobi. Iratũ hingwo nĩ itanire brown. Ngathiĩ to the sixth floor, harĩa hena swimming pool na restaurant. Ngathiĩ ngaorder Fanta. And I spend an hour or two drinking that one Fanta, imagining in my mind that one day I'll come back here and hopefully be able to afford lunch. Today, I'm able to do that. I go back there and I have lunch. And I remember that goal I had back then. Now, let me give you another example of why it is important to ask. Because in life, do not wait for things to be handed to you, especially as students. Please listen to this. Ask for the things that you want. If you do not ask, you'll only be given leftovers. When I was in America, I decided I was getting work experience once I finished my schooling. And I decided, I made a goal that I wanted to be the chairman of a bank. Now you're thinking of I was a young person similar to the doctor here. And I made that decision. I made that goal. Now, then I realized to become the chairman of a bank, you need to be a board member. To be a board member, you need to be sponsored or appointed to get there. So I went to the bank and I told them I want to be the chairman. They said, okay, we'll get back to you. And then I realized that was not going to work. So I did my research. I realized that board members were actually elected during the annual general meeting of a bank. So, and then I did some additional research. I realized that there was a little clause in the bank bylaws that actually said that if you get signatures yourself, you can actually force your name to be in the ballot. So I started gathering the signatures. The board realized that I'll be able to gather enough signatures. So to avoid embarrassment, they decided to invite me to put my name in the ballot. And as most people know, just because your name is in the ballot does not mean you'll win. Politicians know that very well. So I started canvassing for votes. And as luck would have it, during the AGM, I got elected to be a board member of that bank, becoming the youngest person to be a board member and also the first black person to be a board member of that bank. Now remember, I had a 4-year plan to become the chairman of that bank. The first year, I was made the chairman of a committee, loan policy committee. The second year, I was made chairman of the finance committee. The third year, as luck would have it, the vice chairman decided to step down. And annually, at the beginning of the year, the board would get together and elect secret ballot who the chairman and the vice chairman would be. So at that meeting, I did not wait to be proposed. I proposed myself. And I said, I want to be chairman. Fortunately or unfortunately, I did not win. But the board was so impressed by what I was doing that they decided to elect me as the vice chairman. That's how I became vice chairman. The following year, as luck would have it, the chairman was retiring. Again at that meeting, I raised my hand. I said, I want to be chairman. I remember vividly, because it was a secret ballot. The first round, the auditor came back and said, it's a draw. The second round, it was a draw. The third round, I still hear the surprise in his voice when he announced, Shaka Karaoke is the new chairman of the bank. I was in my 30s. I was not only the first black person to be the chairman, I was also the youngest person to be the chairman of that bank. And I was also the first black person in the Western United States to be the chairman of a $1 billion organization. So ask. Do not wait for things to be handed to you. Ask. Point number 2, show up. Success in life is about showing up. 90% of success is about showing up. Students, the fact that you are way ahead of the others that did not show up. You know, it was mentioned, I did go to school in the US. When I arrived in the US, I actually had $20 in my pocket and a letter of admission to a university. I went to the university, asked for the administration block. I wanted to speak to the president of that university, which is similar to the vice chancellor. They told me where to go. I went over there. The secretary asked me, do you have an appointment? I said no. Then she said, it's not possible to see the president without an appointment. To which I looked at her in the eyes and I said, Madam, I have traveled 9,000 miles from Africa to come and meet the president. I will not leave this office until I meet him. She said, then wait a few minutes. Lo and behold, I was ushered into the office of the university president. And it was a short meeting. Within 30 minutes, I walked out of there with a full scholarship and a job as a gardener at that university. Once again, do not wait for things to be handed to you. Ask for the things that you want. And finally, let me conclude with this one other point. Network. Because, you know, the people, you know, the igimamwero igiashoka mojiha na modwa South Sudan, huh? Not all in the Hana way. Anyway, so, you know the students that you are sitting next to you. Today you're in the exact same station in life. But I guarantee you, in 10 years, in 20 years, you're all in different stations. There will be some who are lawyers. There will be, you know, teachers. There will be engineers. There will be business people. There will be all kinds of people. But if you maintain that relationship, if you cultivate that network, those are the people that down the road you'll be calling and they'll be helping you find a job. You'll be calling and they'll be helping your child get into a school. So maintain those relationships. In the US, one of the jobs that I got that made a huge impact in my life was by a fellow student from Kenya who knew somebody at Hewlett-Packard in the US. Introduced me. I got the job. I ended up managing finance teams for that organization in Penang, Malaysia, in Kobe, Japan, in Queensferry, Scotland, and even in the US. So it makes a difference, the relationships that you have. And finally, as I conclude, let me tell you a story about Kiora. You know, the three frogs. There were three frogs that found themselves in a hole. They could not get out because outside the hole were all the haters who said, as the frogs tried to jump up, you cannot make it. You cannot get out of there. You do not deserve to be on top. You stay there. The first frog kept jumping, kept jumping. And finally, as it was trying to get to the top, it could not put up with all the pressure. So it passed away. Then the two frogs were left. They kept jumping. They're trying to get out. Finally, the second one, again, because of the negativity, was not able to get out. Even it passed away. The third frog kept jumping. Yet he's being told, you cannot get out. You do not belong here. You remain out in the hole. Finally, that frog jumped up and found itself on the top. And the other frogs were saying, man, how did that happen? How did you get up here? Guess what was up with that frog? That frog was deaf. Turn a deaf ear to peer pressure. Turn a deaf ear to those people who say you have to take drugs. Turn a deaf ear to those who say your dreams are too lofty that you cannot meet them. Turn a deaf ear to all those who say you do not belong. Turn a deaf ear to all the naysayers. Why? Because you can and because you will. I firmly believe that. And I know as you travel through this journey that we call life, that you will be able to accomplish the goals that you have set. Because if I, who barely got out of primary school, can be able to stand here and talk about all the different businesses and so forth that I run, then even you, who are even more smarter than me, can be able to do the same. Thank you so much. Good luck and God bless.
But before you sit down, kuja shaka. Moja tekirie he shaka o ndagika imwe amugwetere biashara o ciganona iria makoragwo nacio niguo muhote kumenya maundu macio kugaga ni mariku. No agwete cia Kenya na ciikaga atia na cia nja ciganona.
Thank you muno. Kwa biashara tukaona biashara nyingi, tukaona biashara 35 and many of them, as a matter of fact, the 35 no ogitara uria ni kambuni cigana ni kambuni over 200. So for example, twi kambuni imwe etao Transcentury. Transcentury ikoragwo na kambuni ithano. No ngiuga 35 we Transcentury ndatarata kambuni imwe. So some of the businesses we have, for example, we have East African Cables. East African Cables, nio ithondeka the largest manufacturer of cables in East Africa, as a matter of fact. we have the largest capacity, over 750,000 tons. You know, or even the tallest building in Nairobi, it's built with cables from East African cables. You know, we have other companies. For example, in Tanarek, in Tanzania, it's the largest manufacturer of transformers across the region. Transformers yothe cia thitima cuma hau kambuni ĩtagwo Tanarek. So, and then we have other companies like Gen Africa. Gen Africa ĩhaha Nairobi, they manages more than $5 billion just out of here in Nairobi. You know? So any pension, for the most part, be it teachers' pension, all these other pension funds, we actually help manage that money so that people can have a retirement. No, and then even across, as a matter of fact, even for example, Platcop. Platcop people are kaboni nyingi muno. No, why you are platinum credit, momentum credit, you should also do. You know, outside Kenya, to Ethiopia, in DRC Congo, we own the largest palm oil business in Africa, based in DRC Congo. And we own majority of that. And as a matter of fact, in DRC Congo, we are the second largest employer after the government. We are also the largest hospital in the DRC Congo because of all the hospitals that we have. So, as a matter of fact, there will be 25 children that will be born in our hospitals. So these are companies that are doing extremely well, and our goal as a business person is to make sure that whatever company we are buying, that we are trying to take it, our goal is to take it to the next level. In Nigeria, we have other companies. We have even an airline. Some of these companies we buy when they are existing, others we start. The airline business, a young man, not older than you, came to me and said he had this idea of building an airline. And we decided to support him. And we've created an airline business where we have aeroplanes that travel between Abuja and Lagos. So we have all sorts of businesses across the continent, which translates into the billions that I talked about and the impact. But most importantly, for me, it's actually the employment that we are able to create, the thousands of jobs that we're able to create, and the impact that that has on the lives of ordinary Kenyan citizens and people in Africa. Thank you, Mheshimiwa.
Thank you very much. Nĩ njũĩ nĩ tũnogire na tũkahũta, no twĩ hakuhĩ kũrĩkia.